Thunder Dave Steinman claims to have invented Mio Energy and to therefore be the natural choice for spokesperson of the brand.
Mio Energy is the greatest source of energy ever discovered.
Just hit the tag for me. Personal, portable, Mio Energy.
I just went on a vision quest.
Coming up in a couple of weeks is UFC 148, Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen 2, one of the most anticipated fights in UFC history. And obviously a big influence in Anderson Silva's career has been our next guest. Joining us from the West Coast is Steven Seagal himself. Thank you so much for joining us, Steven. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you joining us from right now? Are you in Los Angeles?
No, unfortunately, I'm in Vancouver for the last of the shoot here, and I actually finished today.
So it sounds like there's a lot of commotion behind the scenes there.
Let me see if I can walk somewhere a little more quiet here.
Okay, well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate you coming on. You're filming a movie. Can you tell us a little bit about this movie that you're filming right now in Vancouver? Lovely Vancouver.
Well, I'd much rather talk about Anderson Silva in the fight world here.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we have this huge fight coming up, probably the biggest of the year as far as the UFC is concerned. And I'm wondering, with your busy schedule, you say you're filming this movie now, you're on this set. Have you had a chance to train with Anderson for this fight, this rematch against Chael Sonnen?
I have. Gave him some stuff that I consider to be very special. And I think it's also stuff that, I don't think most people will be expecting.
Oh.
And, Chael last time had an extremely unfair advantage, as you know. And that's why, that whole deal with, I don't know what it's called, steroids or whatever it's called, performance-enhancing drugs. I don't know what it's called.
Right, testosterone replacement therapy.
Is that what it's called?
That's what
Well,
Chael...
anyway.
Yeah.
I think that this time, probably he will be a little more careful with that. And I think that'll even the playing field. And I think also, the last time, whether anybody remembers it or not, Anderson may have had cracked ribs, and I told him not to fight. His doctor told him not to fight. So I think this time it should be a much more even playing field.
So do you think that Chael was cheating going into that fight?
Didn't he get disqualified? Didn't he get suspended from UFC?
Well, what happened was he was on this thing, as I mentioned, testosterone replacement therapy, which is allowed, which you are allowed to take, except he did not fill out the forms. He did not explain to the commission properly. He thought his ex-manager at the time, Matt Lindland, had done so, but apparently, according to him, the lines of communication were broken and whatnot. So he says he didn't cheat, but I'm wondering, this has been a very hot topic in MMA, testosterone replacement therapy, because guys are using it who don't really need it. I'm not saying Chael, but I'm saying in general, there are guys using it who are just trying to gain an edge, trying to feel like they did at 23. As a sort of old school martial artist, as a throwback, if you will, do you feel as though guys are abusing the system here and are using something that they shouldn't be?
Well, I'm sure there are guys that are abusing the hell out of it, and I'm sure that there are guys that are not. And I'm not going to make any judgment on Chael because I don't know him at all. And in fact, what you're telling me now is completely contrary to what I heard. And so I'm not going to even comment on this anymore because obviously a lot of the information that came out was mixed and varied. And I really, I'm hearing this for the first time. So, let's just say this. I think this time they're both going to be, at their best. And I don't think there's going to be any controversy. I don't think there's going to be any injuries. I don't think there's going to be anything. I think two, great fighters are going to get out there and have it out. And I think my guy's going to win. And I think he's going to win handily this time.
Can you give us some insight as to what you were teaching Anderson, some of the tips you gave him? You say some stuff that people will not expect. That's a pretty big thing when you're talking about the greatest living fighter right now.
Well, there are millions of techniques that no one has ever seen in UFC. And, you know, I've showed him some of those. I'm not going to talk about what they are. There are things that I think if Anderson decides to use them, they will be extremely effective. One never knows what your fighter is going to do when he gets out there. When he fought, what's his name, where he kicked him in the face?
Vitor Belfort.
Yeah, when he fought Vitor Belfort, he did exactly. I was with him, you know, until seconds before he went out, and did exactly what I had asked him to do, and to the T, it was just perfect. And sometimes they'll do what you've recommended and what you've taught them. Sometimes they, go on their own because he has, and also an amazing plethora of different techniques that are also very effective. But I think he's in good shape. I think he's training hard. I think a lot of these techniques will be very effective. They're two really different fighters. Chael is, for me, in my opinion, not a puncher, not a kicker. He's good on the ground. And I think that Anderson is a very good puncher, kicker. He's got great elbows, and he's good on the ground. So I think it's going to be an interesting fight.
As a result of your connection with Anderson and Lyoto Machida and what they've done since teaming up with you, have you had other UFC fighters reach out to you, try to reach out to you, ask you to teach them some stuff? Because if you look at the facts, I mean, since we heard that you were with Anderson, he's had arguably his greatest stretch, knocking guys out. Like you said, Vitor Belfort doing what he did to Yushin Okami. He's just looked very good. And Lyoto with what he did to Randy Couture. Had a tough fight, obviously, against John Jones. But I'm just wondering if this has now resulted in people trying to reach out to you and get you to help train them.
Well, I don't really want to get into the politics of who's asked me for what. I have given advice to other champions, let me just put it that way, mostly in the Black House.
Okay.
I have had other people ask me for, advice and so forth and so on. I'm just a simple country boy, but I'm somebody who has been a fighter all my life. I was raised in Japan. I was, as you know, the first, non-Japanese person to open up his own dojo there, and I had thousands of students there and taught there and fought there for most of my life. So I have a lot, and I went all over the world studying from different masters. We were doing mixed martial arts before they used that term. So I've got a plethora of techniques that are not, widely thought about or used in UFC at all. And I'm trying to bring some of those in because I think they'll be very effective.
It feels like, at least to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your influence has only really begun. It started with, Anderson and Vitor. That's when he sort of said he learned that move from you. Prior to that, were you sort of behind the scenes? You didn't want people to mention you? Or did you only around then say, I could teach these guys something and they're not doing it correctly. I should be a little more involved in this sport that's blowing up?
Well, I was behind the scenes, doing stuff without wanting to be mentioned. But we had some kind of, special moments, and Lyoto and Anderson wanted to mention me and did mention me. Okay,
and I'm just wondering, I believe, and I say this sincerely, that you don't get the respect that you deserve from other fighters. People, we had the guy Nam Phan. I don't know if you know him. He's a UFC fighter.
Never heard of him.
Yeah.
Nab Frank?
Nam Phan. Yeah,
He's an American guy? Or?
No, he's not American. He's a guy who has fought all over the organization, now fights in the UFC. I'm not surprised that you haven't heard of him, to be honest.
Yeah.
People trying to discredit you, saying that you're just sort of in it for the fame and to take sort of what is Anderson's spotlight and say that you taught him these things. Does that bother you?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know who this guy is, and I don't really care. I've been fighting all my life. Maybe he's a young guy and he doesn't know about me, but I only started acting late in life, and I put my life on the line many times in Asia. And, when you're the only, semi-white boy there teaching the Japanese back in the day, there are many people who thought it was their duty to come and try to kill you. So, I've been doing this probably before he was born. You know, and you know, it ain't a joke to me. It ain't a joke to me. I've dedicated my life to studying with every great master I could around the world, and you know, so he can say what he wants. I don't need you know, any kind of attention from UFC. I mean, it's a great organization. Most of the people there are good friends of mine. I'm doing this because I'm a warrior and I love the art of war. And, you know, I teach my friends and people who reached out to me and asked me to teach them.
Does a part of you wish that the UFC was popular maybe 30 years ago? You could have gone in there and done your thing. Like that would have been. I mean, your whole life could have probably been different. You maybe not even gone into acting.
I mean, you know, I'm a Buddhist and a kind of a Zen guy. I don't ever, you know, think about the past and say, oh, I wish I would have done this or that. I believe that, you know, my karma is what it is, and I've had a blessed life, and I'm very grateful to, you know, all the, you know, sacred entities in the world for giving me the blessings that I have, you know.
How do you sort of juggle the acting and the other stuff that you do with helping to train guys like Anderson Liotta? I mean, do you fly around, or do you do it sort of via video? How do you do that? Because it's not like you're just sort of devoted to them only as their MMA coach.
I mean, you know, an actor like myself maybe does one movie a year. We don't, you know, really, you know, 70% of the years is, you know, free for other things. 30 to 40% of the year might be acting. So I have lots of time to do different things. I'm also a police officer in Louisiana, Texas, and Arizona. In Arizona, I'm on the border, you know, fighting crime down there, which is severe right now with the cartels and all that.
Yeah, what exactly?
So I have lots of things.
For those that don't know, what exactly are you doing over there? That's a pretty fascinating thing.
Well, I served Joe Arpaio in Maricopa County, and you know, I'm deputy chief under him in his posse, and I do, you know, a lot of stuff on the border where we catch bad guys that are mostly, you know, narco terrorists and that kind of thing. So I'm still running and gunning, and I'm still fighting, and you know, I mean, going back to whatever that guy's name was that I don't even remember.
Right.
Anybody can say what they want. If they meet me and look into my eyes and get a chance to talk to me, I don't think they would think those things.
So are you actually on the border there? I mean, like if a guy's trying to cross the border, do something shady, do they bump into you? Are you standing there and you're sort of calling the shots?
Well, first of all, no, I don't call the shots because I'm usually out there with Haida, and they have a Haida commander. And I work under them, and we're almost always deployed at night, and we're in some very dangerous areas that are close to the border where narco traffickers are coming across with Mexico, across from Mexico with their loads. And we have, you know, our group, and we're all, you know, plated up with machine guns and you know, whatever else we have to try to deter, you know, this kind of, you know, narco terrorism.
I remember talking to you after UFC 135 when John Jones beat Rampage Jackson. You said you weren't impressed with John Jones. Since then, he beat Lyoto Machida, obviously your good friend and student. Are you impressed with him now? Has he earned your respect as a fighter?
Listen, I respect every fighter, every single fighter that gets out there in the octagon and fights. So I respect all of them. What I said was, I don't think that his punches and his kicks landed well. John is a very good wrestler, okay? Do I think he's a good puncher, kicker? No, not at all. And that's just my opinion. He's a very big guy. To me, he's like a heavyweight. He's a heavyweight. He's, you know, 6'4" something, and you know, he's very athletic and very strong. Is he a better fighter than Lyoto? No, not even close.
A lot of people.
But that doesn't mean we can't win.
Right. And a lot of people want to see, I mean, the dream fight. And we had Ed Soares on earlier in the show, Anderson versus John Jones. Do you think that'll ever happen?
I hope not.
Why?
It's just such a huge difference in strength and size and weight.
But maybe they have a catchweight fight, something like that. Like, don't you think that would be fascinating for fans to see?
I really don't know what, is fascinating for fans to see. But like I said, I really think this guy's more of a heavyweight, and I really do. And I heard, and I don't know if this is true.
Yeah.
I heard he said that if he won his last fight, which he did, that he was going to then challenge Junior Dos Santos.
Well,
that would be great. He should do that.
Yeah.
If he really said that, he should do that.
He has a couple more fights at 205. He's going to fight Dan Henderson next. And then he says he wants to fight a heavyweight, but it sounds like the UFC doesn't want him to go up to heavyweight. They want him to stick at 205 and dominate there like Anderson has at 185.
He's cleaned out the division. There's nobody left to fight him. So are you sure UFC is saying that?
That's what he said himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, there's nobody left. After Dan Henderson, who is there? There's almost nobody left.
That is very true. So are you do you watch all the pay-per-views and stuff? Because it sounds like you have your finger on the pulse here of the sport.
Well, yeah, I do. I do watch, and a lot of the people that are what I consider to be, fight gurus, and from a lot of the warriors to some of the managers and gurus, they're close friends of mine, and of course I watch and listen and participate.
Have any of the people around you, I know you have a lot of friends in the sport, have they told you about the hatred that I've received for sticking up for you and your honor? Because I've received a lot of hate for this, a lot of heat.
Well, I've never heard that before, and I apologize for that.
It's a pleasure.
I'm not sure what that's about, but I don't know where there's even room for hate in this arena, and why. I don't get that. I really don't.
Do you think there are a lot of naysayers? I mean, there are a lot of people who say to me, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." There's a lot of people who are quick to judge. Do you think that's the problem?
Well, I think that's always the problem wherever you go, and my attitude is there are the people who have never fought in their life, who love to talk a lot, and there are the people who've dedicated their life to fighting. And most of the guys who've dedicated their lives to fighting are not big on bad-mouthing other people. They usually keep their opinions to themselves and concentrate on perfecting themselves, their spiritual self and their physical self as a fighter and a warrior. That's a real warrior. Real warrior is not somebody who walks around, judging and criticizing and hating other people. And so that's my opinion on that.
Will you be in Anderson's corner come UFC 148 in just a couple of weeks?
I mean, I don't know if I'll be in his corner, but I am planning on being there, and I've just trained him recently, and I'm planning on, I think he's in Brazil right now, so as soon as he comes to America, I'm going to jump in with him and give him a bunch more stuff if I can.
And just a couple more things for you, and we really appreciate the time very much. Have you noticed, I want to ask you this because you're someone who's tasted fame all over the world, recognizable all over the world. I asked Ed about this, but I think you'd probably be a better person to ask. Anderson is getting so popular in Brazil. Cover of Rolling Stone, he's got all these endorsements. Now, you were in a great commercial with him, a Budweiser commercial that fans in the United States could see online. What have you told him about remaining focused? Even though he's 37, he's approached sort of the tail end of his career, but not sort of forgetting where he came from, not getting a big head, not buying into the fame, all that stuff. Have you had a serious sit down with him to explain to him what could happen if you buy into all of that?
I mean, in my own way, we've talked a lot about that. For example, he has told me that when all this is over, he probably wants to become a police officer.
Wow.
And so, that kind of goes to show you where he's really thinking and what he's really thinking,
And do you feel as though he has changed from the guy that you met many moons ago?
With me, he's always very, 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 very humble.
Okay.
He either fears me or pretends to fear me, and certainly has a lot of respect and humility with me. And he's just a consummate gentleman, humble, great student and great friend. I've never seen him behave arrogant in any way, shape, or form. To me, he's just like, just the way I would like any of my students or friends to be.
He once said that he was going to retire at 35. He's 37 now. Do you have any indication as to when he will actually leave the sport?
He has said to me before, and I don't know if, I'm not going to hold him to this because everybody's lives change. He has said to me that he probably is only going to do a few more fights, so we'll see.
A few. Do you think that's like 5, or do you think it's actually going to be less?
At the time he was talking about what he was contracted to do, and I don't remember how many fights that was on the contract, but I'd be surprised if he does more than 5 more fights.
Have you ever considered doing commentating? I think you'd be very good at that.
Well, I've never considered that. I'm not, I'm a little too shy for that kind of stuff, I think.
Maybe you could be like my co-host on this show. We could break down the fights. It'd be the least, after everything I've done. Okay, one last thing I wanted to ask you. And by the way, what's the proper way? Is it master or sensei that you prefer as far as your title?
I mean, it depends on what country you're from. Like, Anderson calls me master. And, most of the Japanese people are from that tradition. They call me sensei or shihan.
Oh.
So.
I think sensei, Steven Seagal, with the 3 S's, it just sort of rolls off the tongue,
There you go. Well, you're the commentator, see?
Okay, I wanted to ask you, there's been this sort of story that's been passed around, and I like to get to the bottom of things. I'm sure you can appreciate that. You versus Judo Gene LeBell. What exactly happened on the set of that movie?
I don't even know if he's still alive. Is he still alive?
Actually, we just had him on the show like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. I never knew this about him. Either he is a pathological liar or he had somebody, making up these stories. He came over to my trailer, and I was with a guy called Conrad Palmisano, who is still a legend and one of the greatest stunt coordinators in the history of Hollywood. And we were standing there, we were just talking about moves and stuff like that. And we were just doing some stretching, and he was showing me how you can stretch, or he wanted to stretch my back, and he stretched my back, and then I just kind of flipped over the top of him and said thank you for that. There was never ever any confrontation with him ever.
Never.
In any way, shape, or form, and I swear to God on my children, they're the most sacred thing to me in this life. And so if he said that, he is a pathological scumbag liar.
So where does this come from? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I keep answering that. Either he made up this lie or someone made it up. And when I first heard that, I was dumbfounded, and so was Conrad Palmisano, who you're welcome to go talk to. He was standing right there, and he's probably the most famous stunt coordinator in our business, and Vietnam veteran and a great salt-of-the-earth, honest, upright, honorable, non-lying man.
Well, just to be fair to him, this is what he said when I asked him, just so to set the record straight. He never really wanted to clear the air for whatever reason, but he did say, well, if a guy soils himself, you can't criticize him, because if they just had a nice big dinner an hour before, you might have a tendency to do that. That's what he was implying. Obviously, the story we've heard is sort of related to that. So you're saying that someone has created this sort of fable, this myth of an altercation that never even happened. And I'm just wondering how it has continued to live on.
Gene LeBell has never even said anything impolite to me. When he would see me, he was extremely polite and just acted like a friend. And I think you know the truth here, and I think everybody else knows the truth here. And if Gene is saying shit like that, he should be ashamed of himself. And after I heard this, I did start to think of some of the things that he had said. Like, he said to me that he beat the shit out of Bruce Lee. And, so I just started thinking, well, you know what? Maybe this guy really is a pathological liar.
Yeah. Maybe this is the fight that we should book in the UFC.
And I mean, well, he's got to be, 78 years old?
Oh,
now?
yeah, if not older.
Maybe he's 80.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but whether he's 150 or 10 years old, he should never make up these kind of sick, I mean, it just makes him look like a total asshole.
Yeah.
If he's the one who's saying.
It's unfortunate.
I mean, it makes him look like a demented child.
Are you familiar with his student, Ronda Rousey? Are you impressed by her?
I've never heard of, it's a her, I've never heard of her.
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough. I don't mean to rile you up or everything. I thought this was a very fun interview. I just really wanted to get to the bottom of the story, and I think we finally put the nail in that coffin, don't you think?
Yeah, you know what you should do if you don't believe me, and I'm pretty positive you do.
I do.
Find Conrad Parmesano. I know you do. And find Conrad Parmesano and let him call Conrad a liar too.
Sure.
I mean, this guy. I mean, if he said those things, he should go have therapy.
And by the way, one last thing. You mentioned Bruce Lee. Have you ever met Bruce? Obviously, when he was alive.
Yes. Yes.
How do you think he would have done in the
And
UFC?
Brandon Ember. I really don't know. I mean, you know, obviously Danny Inosanto, these are real guys, you know, Danny Inosanto and people like that. I mean, Danny and I go way, way back. We are brothers, cut from the same cloth, you know. And I think that, you know, I met Bruce through James Coburn, and I met Bruce at his house many times, and, you know, I knew Brandon, too. I first met Brandon when he was a baby boy, you know, probably 6 or 7 years old, something like that. Young boy.
Well, Sensei, on our third anniversary, this is our third anniversary show, a major honor for us, for you to take some time out of your schedule to talk about Anderson, your career, put the rumors to rest. It meant a lot to us. So we really appreciate the time. Hopefully we'll see you in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks for UFC 148 and continue the great work that you're doing in the sport. I will say the sport is in a better place today once we found out that you were a part of it, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
There he is, the man himself, Sensei Steven Seagal. All you people, Nam Fan, Judo Gene, Joe Rogan, all you people talking smack should be ashamed.